I'd like to call to order the Select Board meeting of October 30th, 2023. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, we'll be going into executive session. Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No need for roll call. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No.
Excuse me, Mr. Mickelson.
Yes.
Mr. McDonald. Yes. Mrs. Brooks.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. My apologies. We will go into executive session, be back here as soon as we can, close to 6:30. Thank you very much. Would like to call to order the Select Board meeting of October 30th, 2023. This meeting is being held here in room 304. It's an open meeting. We will be recording as we have one member who is off online, and we'll be attending remotely. All roll call votes will be done individually. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing as we honor our veterans, both past and present, and hope that peace comes to our world as soon as it's possible. Thank you very much. First order on docket, Mr. McGinnis. Joseph Hinglesby.
Yes, is he up? He is in attendance.
Thank you very much for having me. It was, I believe, in 2013, as part of the Dartmouth Tercentenary, that we worked on a series of panels when I was a member of the Dartmouth Historical Commission. And those have stood the test of time, you know, from Colonel Green's property to Smith Mills to Russell's Mills, and throughout town, each village was commemorated with a kiosk, with double-sided kiosk, with panels that represented its history. And I think that history is telling the story for future generation. Now, what was sad about all of that is that we ran out of time and we ran out of funding to complete the Lincoln Park and the Pascomanset kiosks, which were part of the original plan. But thankfully, with the Dartmouth Pathways Committee and the generosity of the CPC at town meeting, we were able to complete those. And so I'm here tonight just to let you know that finally, you know, a decade later, we finished the Dartmouth Heritage Trail. And what I would like to do, as I had done before, is to reproduce those panels for the town hall. And some of those have like a phone app that you can actually follow, so it's interactive. And the idea is that people will be able to travel from kiosk to kiosk, from village to village, and get reacquainted with the history of Dartmouth. Now, the Lincoln Park kiosk was really pretty interesting, involved a lot of research, finding the images and speaking with people who actually had the memory of Lincoln Park. And the memories are always positive. It was a place that people brought their children, they fell in love, some even have returned to Lincoln Park after meeting each other, I heard, on the Comet. And they returned to Lincoln Park. They have a house there now. So it seems fitting to have a couple of panels. One is representing the history, and it takes you through transportation, you know, from the horse and carriage to the trolley cars to the early cars to the motor cars that took people through to Cape Cod on Route 6. But beforehand, it was always a place where the trolley cars would connect the people on the weekends from the factories in Fall River and New Bedford, and from the Westport factory to have picnic grounds at Lincoln Park. So it took time before it developed into what it became in its heyday. And so now there's the memory of that. The second side of that panel is talking about the joy of the people over many generations, how many people went through there, how many people rode the Comet, and how many people enjoyed the amusements that were there, the bands, the dancing, the skating events that happened, and the Lincoln Park Carousel was built in 1920. by the Philadelphia Toboggan Company. And for the first time, I have to admit, I rode it last week. And it's beautiful. It still is beautiful. They're all carved. They're all beautifully enameled. They have gilding on them. They have 28 jumping horses, 20 standing horses, 2 chariots. I rode in the chariot. I was worried my weight might break one of the horses if I sat in it, but I think that they're built to last. So we have 3 panels that are of Lincoln Park, an introductory panel, and then 2 panels that are Pascamansid. Now, what's interesting about Pascamansid is that it's a freshwater river, of course, that goes down to the Slocum River, which is brackish, that then it empties into, it is tidal from Upon-against-It Bay. And it's 13.4 miles long, and its headwaters are the Acushnet Cedar Swamp. It goes all the way to the Upon-against-It Bay. What's interesting is that was a highway for the natives years ago, and they would travel from the Upon-against-It Bay area within a village and make their way back in wintertime to the Acushnet Cedar Swamp where they had protection. So the Pascamansid panels are telling the stories of the natives. It tells you about their former territory. It gives you the deed of Dartmouth. It tells you something about the history of it. And then another one is sort of looking at the original mapping. And I was very lucky to have been able to listen to Lisa Brooks. She's brilliant. She's a native American historian, and she wrote Our Beloved Kin. And so I was able to tap into that, as well as speaking with the Pocassets and the Pokanoket people who are still here. You know, they say, we are still here. And the Wampanoags, actually, they're the people of the first light. So that particular panel is representing a sunrise. And with a mighty oak tree, the white oak, which can live for hundreds of years. And it's something that showed a sort of permanence, setting its roots down into the soil. So what I'd like to do is, we applied for a grant through the Dartmouth Cultural Council to actually have these reproduced in smaller scale. They're about 13 by 19 original, and then they're cut down a little bit. They're framed to match the ones that are out there. And I measured the space to the right of the select board's entry door, and there's a bulletin board there, and that will fit the 6 panels perfectly, and would line them up so that they're matched to the other side, the outside of the building, of the wall, and it would complete the set. So I'm here to ask permission. Is it okay if we should I get funding through the Dartmouth Cultural Council to install the panels to match the ones that are there and complete the set for the Heritage Trail?
I've been waiting 10 years to say this. Heck, yes.
For sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any discussion. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I do have one
But
question.
sorry.
I do have one question.
Yes.
The history that you, and I've been able to read the fine print
Yeah.
regarding the natives is someone's interpretation. And as we found out in our research, there's a lot of interpretations. And I'm not against what you're doing. I think it's a great project. But once we put this up on town hall property, it seems it's being endorsed by the town as to what the history actually is. Is that a fair statement?
Well, perhaps, but what you should know is it's been parsed. It went not only through the Pathways Committee, it went through scholars at UMass Dartmouth. It was also based on, I attended, symposiums, native symposiums of the Pokanokets and the Pocasset tribes, one at Brown University, one at Roger Williams University, also one at the Dartmouth History and Arts Center here, the former school. And I took copious notes. I spoke. I sent the materials for review by them. And and also relied on Lisa Brooks's work, which has won all sorts of awards for history writing. So I've tried to be as careful as I can, and I offered to both the native and also showed some information about the early American history here. So.
My only question, I understand the panels here, but will the group also be erecting the kiosks in those locations?
Yes, there's already one up at Pescamancet, and the other one is going to be on Beaton Road.
All right.
We spoke to the homeowners at Lincoln Park. We had a meeting with them on site. And I think that the roads are not accepted there for whatever reason. I think the developer never finished what he said he was going to do. So there's a little bit of a controversy. Yeah, I remember what was said. I was there. I spoke to him originally, but that didn't happen. So on Beaton Road, I think is a good place. There's a town easement there. It's on town land.
Great.
So there'd be no controversy.
Mr. Mickelson?
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. My only comment is that because of technology today, there are less and less people coming into this building, and especially on the second floor. I wonder, could this be like a little travel? Could you have it at the library for some point, for a month maybe?
Well, we have the panels on the wall here now.
Oh,
but
you do?
We could do a separate exhibition.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just because of the sheer numbers, I'm thinking.
Oh, yeah. And also, I think that as the Pathways Committee gets organized, they're talking about doing an actual trail with bicyclists.
Great.
And so I think they're going to be connecting that way.
Okay.
And it's all mapped too, so.
Okay.
So I think it's going to be accessible that way.
I just want as many people to get to see it as possible.
Very nice. I remember one time I was here for a meeting, and it was X number of years ago, and somebody was in to talk to the select board, said he was wondering, well, he really thought he really liked it. So I think it's a good way of representing Dartmouth. Okay. And what's nice about having it in official building is that it's giving you a timeline of Dartmouth and all of its villages. Because I think that Dartmouth it's well run, and I think that people are really interested in knowing about its past to sort of chart the future.
I can't thank you enough for your hard work.
Thank you.
I said I cannot thank you enough.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah.
Have a motion?
Yeah, just before
Yes.
I make the motion, there's one thing I've learned over the years is that history is always changing. It's always being rewritten and written over and over again.
That's
and
true.
we're always making that history as we move forward. So whether the panels are 100% accurate, who knows? But, maybe 10, 15 years from now, somebody else will come and say, hey, we need to add this, no problem. I just, I'm glad this is coming to kind of an end. I don't want to say it is the end, because I know that eventually we'll probably come up with maybe one or two more. You never know.
Yeah.
But with that, I just make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Let's vote. Mr. Mickelson?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Gracie?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, 5-0. Thank you
you
so
very
much for the
much.
work you've done for us.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
much.
Member of town.
Thank you.
Next, Veterans Day event, November 11th.
Veteran Service Officer Matt Brier is here.
Matthew?
Good evening, ma'am, gentlemen, how we doing? I'm here just to let you know about our 5th Annual Veterans Day event, which will be held at the Council on Aging on Veterans Day, Saturday, the 11th at 11 a.m. Services will be located at the Veterans Memorial Grove. We will have catered refreshments upon the conclusion through the generosity of the Dartmouth Friends of the Elderly.
Terrific.
Nice.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Hope to see you there.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Next, Department of Marine Fisheries, Shellfish Clark's Cove reclassification notice.
Good evening. Steve Mello, Harbor Master, Shellfish Warden. The town received official notice from Division Marine Fisheries on October 18th, changing the status of Clark's Cove, 1/3 of which is Dartmouth, 2/3 New Bedford. It's now prohibited. It sounds like a drastic change, but in reality, it had been conditionally approved for years. The conditions that allowed it to be shellfished were rarely, if ever, met in recent years, and it had been closed to shellfishing. But the status was conditionally approved. Based on studies being done primarily to the discharge of the sewer treatment plant, they've been required or forced to change that to prohibited. It's not going to open again to shellfishing unless there's a full sanitation survey. I don't see that in our near future, but it would require a full updated sanitation survey that could last up to 5 years before they could revert to any other status than prohibited. You've heard a lot in recent months about the combined sewer overflow. Well, Marine Fisheries is now looking beyond that to the ordinary sewer discharge from that plant. So we're not talking about rain situation or storm discharge. This closure of the prohibited status is based on the everyday output of the sewer treatment plant. The area affected runs from the eastern tip of our breakwater at Ricketson's Point to the tip of the fort in New Bedford and all the way north into all of Clark's Cove.
Yeah, gigantic.
So that's problem one. The next topic is Marine Fisheries is modeling the discharge from that sewer treatment plant with a UMass professor, Dr. Chen. And from what I've been told and from what I've read, he's the best at modeling, which is basically a theoretical disbursement of whatever comes out of the sewer treatment outflow pipe. And preliminary, his first go-around in modeling could have impacted shellfishing from Westport to Mattapoisett, including all of Dartmouth, including our aquaculture, including everything that I think we've worked together to bring to fruition over the years. Modeling is nothing more than scientific projection, and the data that you put into it affects the results, the accuracy of the results. So we're working to get the best data input so that we have the best outcome in the modeling. And I had a conversation today with our area biologist from Marine Fisheries. The best news I can offer is that I've received the notice that the seasonal change, the opening of North Padenham Harbor, north of Pondagansett Bay, is scheduled for Wednesday at sunrise. So although this modeling is going on and the projections are dire, Marine Fisheries has issued an opening to shellfish for the north of Pondagansett Bay, North Padenham Harbor, starting sunrise on Wednesday. How long that lasts will depend on the modeling and, again, the scientific predictions of outflow. I just want to stress that we're doing samples monthly, if not biweekly, and although models could show certain things might happen, the water quality is there. The meat from the shellfish that's being sampled is clean. So we're talking theoretical versus actual, and the actual hopefully will prevail, but
It's always the case.
they say trust the science, but then the science can go one way or the other depending upon
It's a huge
the
area.
data.
What do you need from us, Steve?
I want the town to be aware, I want the select board to be aware that a lot is being done to make sure things continue in the right direction, but we are fighting theoreticals, so.
I have a question regarding the CSO in the Clark's Cove itself and fishing there. I see too often not people are fishing there. And what's your recommendation on that?
Well, the CSO is one issue, but if you notice, there have been a lot of signs put up by the federal government, and they are advising against any kind of fishing, lobstering, fin fishing, and it goes from New Bedford Harbor. The plume of the PCB disturbance from the dredging is coming into Clark's Cove, it's coming into Dartmouth. They're advising against eating of fin fish from the area that, I don't have it in front of me, but the area of the plume pretty much reaches from Michon Point to Fairhaven and all the areas north. Certainly you can fish for sport, but they advise against eating it because of the disturbance.
Big area, too. Yeah. And all the day guys, they go out early in the morning, fish right there.
Most of them are now going out toward the islands and further out, which greater risk, greater travel,
Yeah.
but, yeah.
Comments? Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, the Dartmouth Police update on calls received at motels.
Yes, so the board asked at a previous meeting if the chief could give an update on calls for service at the motels in town. So the chief has prepared what's in your packet with some of the data, and he's here to answer any questions if you have any.
And so just briefly to explain what we did, just so you can take a look at kind of the comparison. You have the updated information in front of you. Time period is October 17th, 2022 to the same time this year. What I had done kind of behind the scenes just to see how this compares to previous years, we looked at the last year before that, so 21 into 22, and there really wasn't much change. The biggest change we had noted is a decrease of 44 calls at the Best Western, and that was mostly medical calls, that decrease. The rest of them were virtually the same as what you're seeing now, so not much of a change overall.
Chief, when you do a motor vehicle stop, is it somebody from State Road or from the main road that just pulls in and that's considered a stop for that? Or is it specifically a vehicle that is at the motel or hotel that's being looked at or flagged?
Yep, great question. So we did the best we could to filter out those two different scenarios so that if a car happened to just be stopped in front of the, if we initiated a car stop and it just happened to stop in front of the motel, we did the best we could to filter those calls out so it wasn't counted in this study. It would be cars at the hotels.
Okay. So basically, the numbers are relatively the same as compared to the previous year?
Yes.
All right. So is there any discussion ongoing with your department and with the town, with the operators of these establishments to kind of well, if I want to say it, I want to say clean up their act? Because it appears, looking at a lot of this stuff now, I know you have medical, but it's not really broken down as to why. I mean, whether it's a heart attack or more than likely it's an overdose situation. And I'm not pointing fingers at any individual or any type of segment of society, but it's a well-known fact that a lot of these establishments do not attract the most upstanding citizens of our area.
Yeah, so, we do respond to a number of overdoses, many of them at the motels. In the past, we have worked, we'll call it kind of a task force with other town departments, building department, fire department, and so forth, Board of Health potentially, to be included in, to go by the motels and kind of look at what they're doing and offer suggestions to them as to how they can improve things. Right. So we can look to do that again, establish that group and go out to these motels.
Well, I know the Board of Health has been in the forefront of, I guess, the extended stays reviewing, and I believe that was one of the reasons why the Moby Dick was closed down for a while. But now they're back in operation. There's several factors that is concerned with me, because number one, it's the location of the majority of, half of them, okay? Half of them are on probably the busiest, if not, one of the busiest thoroughfares in this town. The advent of the sidewalks on the southern side of Route 6 is actually pretty helpful. However, the location of the crosswalk is probably the most head-scratching one. I've never seen it used. Everybody likes to cross the median strips in the middle, and chances are they're wearing dark clothes, and now we have more dark. There's more people acceptable to, unfortunately, getting hit by, the cars. I think we need to ramp up that group again and have a complete discussion with these owners of these establishments that, they need to toe the line. I'm getting to the point where if I start seeing more and more of these calls using resources of the town, we're going to start charging them these resources, or we're going to close them down. I mean, I'll eat the 1.5% tax on the motel and hotels, to make sure that, number one, our citizens are safe and the people that frequent there are safe. So, I just want to make sure that this is not lost, and I want that group revived. No, excuse me, I'm sorry. I would like that group revived.
So we'd be happy to be part of that group, and we can work to reestablish that. I did see the crosswalk used once anyways, but unfortunately the person didn't take the time to press the button to light the lights up, which was unfortunate because, you're on kind of a highway there, and it's a little difficult to see somebody crossing the road from a distance, and you need time to slow down. So unfortunately, they crossed in the crosswalk, but didn't bother to press the light.
The location of the crosswalk, first of all, it's in a location where people have already got a head of steam, and then all of a sudden they're going to have to stop. People are using the crosswalks at Fons Corner Road and Old Westport Road over at the mall, and cars are still going through, doing the right turn on red, even when the crosswalk light is on or the numbers are on. So I just have a very, very difficult time believing somebody coming down, flying down Route 6, and somebody that crosswalk light's going to go in, they're just going to stop. I just see that potentially as a bad thing happening. So why does the state put it there?
They don't stop at the red lights. Why should they stop at a yellow light?
Brooks?
This is actually directed to Ms. McDonald. What group are you talking about? There was a group.
He had mentioned there's a group consistent of the police department, the building department, the health department, that go through the establishments to make sure that, number one, they're following what they're supposed to be doing. Number two, that the extended stays are, they're not doing the extended stays like they were doing at the Moby Dick, because these were almost like homes for, when I'm saying extended stays, in such as these are short-term, 1-2 months, unless there's something in writing from the state, which is going on.
Yes.
So, but some of these people were individuals, they're staying there months on end. And it's creating, and you take a look at some of the arrest warrants, arrest reports that show up, and where are they coming from? They're coming from the Capri, they're coming from the, Moby Dick, they're coming from, Dartmouth Motor Inn, at some point in time, you just got to say, smarten up, And one of the biggest concerns I had, and I've said it before, is the Capri and the Best Western being right next to a marijuana dispensary. And a
Hasn't opened yet.
and a cultivation.
Yeah.
So That's why I've been pushing for that dispensary to get, better security, more security. I trust and I trust humanity, but man, sometimes humanity just makes me shake my head.
I think the other element we haven't mentioned yet is the influx of the migrant families who are trying to take care of the best we can. And they're taking over many, many of the rooms in these hotels, which is going to change elevate the entire process and make it even more difficult for people to coexist and be safe. And we meet on a regular basis, and it's going to have to become part of that process where we manage those the families and how we manage those establishments. It's an incredible challenge. It pushes all the every department in town, and every resource we have is now being pushed and taken away for outside people coming in, and we don't have the resources for them. So
Yeah,
it's
and
all part
essentially
of that same
they're
process.
living in the motels, which there's not a lot to do there each day. They don't really have great transportation, so they're kind of just stuck in the hotels, and they're doing what we try not to do. The long term, they're going to be there for the long term.
It puts a pressure cooker on that, more so than we even have up till now, which is intense.
Yeah.
It's going to be more elevated.
And the big problem is they don't speak English. And that's another challenge.
Well, my whole impetus in this whole thing is not the migrant family, okay? It's the
Two different
surrounding
entities.
areas. It doesn't help the existence, but still, the main problem is I'm not worried about the migrant families. They are far from the least of my worries. It's the others. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about the knucklehead from wherever from there, who just all of a sudden decides to make a score. And next thing you know, 3 or 4 people in the establishment are participating in that score. And then all of a sudden, Stat has to come and throw Narcan at them. You guys have to come and deal with a domestic disturbance because Knucklehead 1 wants to fight Knucklehead 2. It puts you guys in danger, puts Stat in danger, and puts our citizenry in danger. That's what I'm going to try to eliminate. I know it's tough. I know it's difficult. But we've got to put pressure on these guys to be a little bit more cognizant of who they're renting out to, instead of just trying to bring in the almighty buck.
Anything else, Chief?
That's it.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Just to let you know, expect this next year, too.
No problem.
Okay, thanks.
Next on the agenda, moving along, the DPW update on sidewalk maintenance and construction. Mr. Barber.
He's going in for his hip replacement in 2 days.
Good evening, Tim Barber, Department of Public Works Director. He asked me here to update on sidewalk repair and reconstruction.
This one right here.
You may remember back in May, I was here, I presented with a PowerPoint on past year's work and proposed work for this year. We're working on the last final phase of the reconstruction of the sidewalks and roadways in the Bliss Corner areas, Buttonwood, St. John, Ashley Street. So those, all concrete sidewalk, granite curbing, reconstruction, all meeting ADA compliance. That's pretty much the final phase of this reconstruction. So in this year's capital, we proposed moving on into other areas to reconstruct the sidewalks and granite curbing in those areas to bring those up to compliance and reconstruct the roads as we do these. These projects weren't funded this year. And typically when they're funded, either in the spring or the fall, the following winter, we work on the survey and the design for the following construction season so we can advertise these projects and move to construction in the spring. So we won't have a project this year to work on for design for reconstruction. The, as far as repairing sidewalks, and we've, we started, we'd come before you, the select board and the planning board in the past to allow us to make a decision if a sidewalk's beyond repair. And if it's in an area that it's not completely warranted, we can remove the sidewalks in some subdivisions and loam and seed and landscape these areas. We started in a subdivision off of Tucker Road, Lane Farm, and we completed Farmers Circle. In the spring, I informed you that we were starting on Lane Farm. We've completed that section of road. It's all landscaped, and we are planning to move to other sections in John Rolfe Drive, Cutter Lane, and Galleon Drive. This season's been a little tough with weather, and we're still short 10 drivers. So in a lot of these construction sites, you need a dump truck with a CDL driver. So to do that work with a 1-ton, it's not going to be efficient. So when we do have days where we have enough drivers, we'll send them out. We've been under full construction with multiple roadways in the last month and a half, and hope to be finishing up the last section of reconstruction within the next week or two. And like I said, if we have time this fall, winter season, we'll get that done. If not, we'll continue in the spring.
Uber doesn't have any
Uber.
dump truck division, do they?
No, but they should.
They should, yeah, really. So eventually, some of these older subdivisions who have been complaining about the sidewalk because of the trees that were planted by the developer, which just basically lifted the sidewalk up because of the roots. Eventually, they will be getting to what if there was a HOA around the neighborhood and they decided to contact the town saying, look, we want to abandon all the sidewalks, and they would want to pay for it themselves. Would the town be okay with that?
Yes, as long as they hire a contractor that's licensed to work within the right-of-way. Absolutely.
Okay.
But they would have to be accepted streets, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, if they had a non-accepted street with a sidewalk and then they wanted to do the same, they have that right. I visited a subdivision to look at some tree issues and root issues that were going into driveways and sidewalk, and the resident actually said, when they were building this neighborhood, I asked, why are you installing sidewalks in this small neighborhood? And,
right. I mean, granted, some neighborhoods, the sidewalks are actually, but when there's like one street in on a subdivision,
some of the longer subdivisions, really warrant sidewalks because people tend to pick up speed and drive faster, and it's safer to be on a sidewalk. And those will continue to repair, but the smaller dead-end cul-de-sacs, not really warranted.
Other comments or questions?
No, it's just, I know there was a lot of people that were talking about this, and they were wondering about it, mostly phone calls or social media or something, so I wanted to make sure that at least, we have an update on this so that people are aware that, the town is not avoiding the problem, it's just waiting for the problem and then taking care of on a case-by-case basis as the funds are available. So, that's just like with anything. I mean, government does move at a snail's pace.
And when we do reconstruct a roadway, we want to do the whole thing. We want to take care of the sidewalks as well and do it in one shot.
Also, has there been a discussion, and a heartfelt discussion with the planning board when a development is made, proposed by a developer about sidewalk and tree planting?
Absolutely.
It's nice to plant trees. There's nothing wrong with that. But putting a maple tree, on a 3-foot section between the road and the sidewalk, 10 years from now, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah, so we recommend the trees be planted back away from the sidewalk, not between the curbing or the sidewalk in the road, but back closer to the property line, maybe 2 feet from the property line. It'll still eventually have a nice canopy, but will have less impact on the sidewalk.
Okay. All right, well, hopefully they'll take that.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Good? All set?
Thank you for the presentation.
Good night.
We're going to take one quick out of order. We're going to call on the,
Let's take care of,
Yes.
that's exactly what we're doing.
Oh, you are?
I just said out of order.
out of order?
Take it out of order.
Great.
You're not out of order. We're going to take it out of order.
No, he's out of order.
November Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month. You want to read this? You need to read it.
Read it.
Okay.
You read my mind.
I know, right?
Hello, thank you for putting this on the agenda tonight. I am Brock Cordero, a lifelong resident of the town, volunteer with the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network and the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, and chair of the Special Legislative Commission to study pancreatic cancer. Been a bit of an expert on the subject, self-taught, unfortunately, because my father, as many of you know, contracted pancreatic cancer in October of 2013, had a failed surgery, Whipple procedure in October 2013, and died on March 30th, 2014 from pancreatic cancer. And once again, I'm before you asking if you would please vote to adopt a proclamation to proclaim November as Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month. It is recognized as such across the country. Also, next door in the city of New Bedford, the mayor will make that proclamation on the 1st. Actually, it's World Pancreatic Cancer Day on Thursday, November 16th. It's always the third Thursday of November. And that is why I'm wearing far too much purple, because that is our awareness color. So I'm just here before you. Just for example, pancreatic cancer is often overlooked, I believe, from other forms of cancer. We are still in October. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. That's pink. It's also Liver Cancer Awareness Month, which is green for awareness. But pancreatic cancer in Massachusetts is actually the second deadliest form of cancer in the Commonwealth, behind only lung cancer. Nationally, it's the third deadliest cancer, behind lung cancer and colorectal cancer, and it's forecast to become number 2 by 2030. It has a 5-year survival rate of only 12%, but I will cheer because that's up 1% from last year and 6% from when my father died from the disease. So we are seeing progress, but very slowly and nowhere near the other major cancers. It does have a 5-year survival rate of 12%. However, over 70% of pancreatic cancer patients will die within the first year of diagnosis. In Massachusetts, this year, the American Cancer Society estimates that there will be 1,400 cases in the Commonwealth diagnosed, with 1,110 deaths from the disease. Nationally, that's more like 50,550 deaths and over 64,000 diagnoses. So it's a disease that, like I said, I believe it's often overlooked, and that's why I appreciate the select board's your past advocacy on this issue and supporting such a proclamation. And I actually want to thank Sean McDonald for his support personally in this matter. A couple of months ago, I was working on a project. For example, there is a legislation that I co-wrote that has 94 individual, bicameral, and bipartisan co-sponsors at the State House, an act to reduce incidence and death from pancreatic cancer that does include every state representative and senator from this area. Of course, that includes Mark Montigny and Dartmouth's own Chris Markey. So I want to thank them as well. But again, I'm before you just asking if you would please vote again for this proclamation. It's a symbolic matter, but it does make a grave difference in terms of awareness, and it's a matter that, as you drive around town, drive around this area, I expect the city of New Bedford will be lighting up their city hall purple. If you had the lights here, I would ask you to do the same. Similarly, I would love one day if we ever lit up the Ponteganza Bridge, because I can tell you that barring some construction, the Braga Bridge, the Zachem Bridge, the Burns Bridge, the Longfellow, and the Four River Bridges will be lit up purple on November 16th. So this proclamation will be joining the city of New Bedford. I have hopes for Governor Healy to issue a similar proclamation very soon. And again, if this is an often overlooked form of cancer, and I greatly appreciate your time and attention in raising awareness of it.
Well, firstly, may your father rest in peace. We have a proclamation in front of us I'd like to read. The Town of Dartmouth, Massachusetts Proclamation Resolution declaring the month of November Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month in the Town of Dartmouth, Mass. Whereas in 2023, an estimated 64,050 people will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States, and 50,550 will die from the disease. Whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers and currently the third leading cause of cancer death in the United States. Whereas pancreatic cancer is the only major cancer with a 5-year relative survival rate rising 1% from 2022 to just 12%. Whereas when symptoms of pancreatic cancer present themselves, it's generally late stage, and over 70% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first year of their diagnosis, while 88% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years of diagnosis. Whereas the Recalcitrant Cancer Research Act was signed into law in 2013, which calls on the National Cancer Institute to develop a scientific framework or strategic plans for pancreatic cancer and other deadly cancers, which will help provide the strategic direction and guidance needed to make true progress against these diseases. Whereas it will be very difficult to leverage the opportunities that come out of the scientific framework developed as a result of the Recalcitrant Cancer Research Act unless sustained and adequate funding is provided by the National Institutes of Health and National Cancer Institute. Whereas federal funding for medical research is critical to job protection and creation in Massachusetts. Whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network is the national organization serving the pancreatic cancer community in Dartmouth and nationwide through a comprehensive approach that includes public policy, research funding, patient services and public awareness, and education related to developing effective treatments and a cure for pancreatic cancer. Whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network and its affiliates in Dartmouth support those patients currently battling pancreatic cancer, as well as to those who have lost their lives to the disease and are committed to nothing less than a cure. Whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of Dartmouth are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into the early detection, causes, and effective treatments. Resolved that the Select Board designate the month of November 2023 as Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month in the town of Dartmouth, Massachusetts.
Move its acceptance.
Second.
Comments? Let's vote.
I do have a comment, actually.
Yes.
Once this passes, I'd like to charge our Assistant Town Manager to figure out how to light this town hall purple on November 16th.
One of those fancy Halloween light bulbs.
Let him figure it out.
Yeah, I know that we have some on hand already.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Dolores Joseph will know where they are.
Are we ready to vote?
Vote.
Mr. Mickelson?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Gracie?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, 5-0. Proud to participate with you, and thank you for bringing this to us.
Brock.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Brock. God bless.
Okay. Thanks for your patience out there. Next on the agenda is the Historical Commission request to fund policy station feasibility study.
Hi, thank you for having me. Chris Sewell, Chair. We're here to request that the Select Board support the use of CPC funds for a feasibility study to assess reuse options for housing, senior, mixed or otherwise, at the old police station. This will give the town a current, professional, objective assessment of what the town-owned asset is worth and what it would take to make it into useful housing for Dartmouth residents. The feasibility study would allow us to hire a consultant to do the following work: to evaluate environmental and regulatory constraints, evaluate infrastructure needs, conduct a financial analysis to see if housing is feasible at this site, and to produce hypothetical development scenarios. As background, we were here last month or the month before discussing the same issue, so I'm going to try not to repeat myself on some of our key points, but just a few. In 2015, there was a feasibility study done, and that recommended renovating the old police station for reuse. It was not voted to do so by the town, but the feasibility study did see potential for the building to be renovated and reused. Excuse me. In March 2019, the Select Board approved the formation of a use review committee that was charged with reviewing various options to which the previous Dartmouth Police Station, modular offices, and land could be used or removed to benefit the citizens of the town of Dartmouth. And it was directed that the committee shall serve until they have made their final report to the Select Board, and the report is adopted by the Select Board. That 9-member committee never was able to make a report to the committee, to the Select Board, because of COVID, and I believe it was disbanded and never reconstituted. But we feel that it's appropriate that the Select Board allow time to examine the issue and become informed as to our options, which go beyond the concept of perhaps just a recreation center. And we believe it might even be possible to have both a recreation center and housing in the old police station that might be renovated. We also realize that the 2023 master plan identifies several specific housing goals which would be served by adaptive reuse of this building for housing. And so, again, the feasibility study would give us some better information about whether this is possible and what might be best suited if it is possible. So now we are looking at possible reuse as a commission and with interested parties within Dartmouth. There was a recent site visit at which Ron DePippo, renewable energy consultant and professor emeritus in mechanical engineering at UMass Dartmouth, was present and provided a report to us. David Silvera, president and principal project manager at South Coast and Associates, and his son Christian, who's a designer there as well, were in attendance. As well as Linda DeRoche, former DHC chair and graduate of BU's Preservation Studies program, and Sue Gaducci, who has been spearheading this process also as a DHC member. So opportunity is in our hands, and we would like to see what could be done with this $2 million building rather than tearing it down. It's such an asset. And we think that that's what responsible government does, is to look at options and see what's best for all taxpayers and what kind of matches we can make between our goals, especially in the master plan, and our needs. There are income opportunities for the town if this building could be reused, but not if it is demolished. So in our bylaw, our bylaw exists to take a pause and look at options, as you know. And so we are trying to take this time to see if there are these alternative options. It's been really difficult. We have a small committee. We're volunteers. We sadly lost one of our most important and useful members recently, as you know, Bob Harding. Immediately following our decision to delay demolition, or our vote, we had some changes in membership as well, with one person leaving. And so, as hard as we have tried to find outside resources to help us with this process, it's been challenging. We have reached out to Shelley Goering, the senior program manager at Mass Housing Partnership. She indicated that the January deadline was too soon for her organization to examine this project, although she would have liked to do so, and so many others are already in the queue that she wasn't able to indicate when she might be able to assist us. More time would allow her to consider it further and advise. We've made contacts with other developers. I've reached out to Preservation Mass. They have a consultant for historical commissions around the state, and I'm waiting to hear back from him. He's a part-time person there as well, works on the entire eastern part of Massachusetts, so it's a huge area to cover. I reached out to Whale, I know there are a number of organizations that others can speak to, but we have been trying very, very hard. So I went to the CPC at the last meeting and requested their support and got a unanimous vote to support us coming to you and to approach them for a feasibility study coming out of the general funds, because this would be targeted towards housing specifically. If we got the approval for the feasibility and if we got the money that we would be requesting, we would also need some additional time to work this out. And so we would also be requesting that additional time. We're not sure how long it would take, but we would like to have additional time for this process. So, thank you for.
I try my best to always make it a point to let my members speak before I do. I think that's the proper role of a chair. However, at this point, I'd like to say something. I also went back to our last meeting and listened to the meeting and what was said, and I'm a little bit confused. We supported this timetable to wait and see and do the best we can to see if there's any viability. But the agreement I thought we had was you go out and find out if this building can be cleaned and safe, then we can move to the next step. And I repeated myself at the end of the meeting, the first step is find out if it's going to be, can it be cleaned? And I understand you're under great stress to find someone who can tell you that. But this board voted, the last time we voted on this issue, to tear it down because we were told it could not ever be safe. That's how we stand now. So, and when I see this issue about feasibility and about potential and about a master plan, all great ideas, and maybe, just maybe, we'll end up saying that, yes, it can be clean and we should move on. But we haven't addressed that issue unless I'm missing something.
Well, I think from our perspective, we had the 2015 feasibility study, which I realize is in the past and things may have changed since then, but that did support the idea that the building could be rehabilitated and reused by an outside consultant, an architectural firm. Since then, we've had 2 site visits with engineers and people who work in architecture and design and housing and development. And they, too, have indicated that this building could be rehabilitated and made safe and reused. So the feasibility study would add to that, but we feel like we have already gone a long way to establishing that it could be made safe. And we've had at least 3 different professional opinions that have asserted that. And if you'll allow others to speak, you could probably get some more information on that. And I know you also were given a packet with the report from Ron DePippo, and so I'm hoping that you all had a chance to read that, which gave some more information on that.
Anybody else? If anybody else in the group?
Oh, let them speak first before.
Please, you have to come up to the mic. Anybody who wants to speak. Introduce yourself and.
Yeah, I'm Christian Gavush Silvera. I'm a Dartmouth resident of Slocum Farm Drive, a subdivision with cracking sidewalks. So one of the difficult aspects of this whole project, as I've been working closely with the Historic Commission as a professional in this field, is that you need to have interest in funding behind a project before you can have a true health consultant go in there and give a full broken out report. And a feasibility study can capture that exactly. Not only could it capture costs, but it can also capture rehabilitation options. But aside from that, I also approach this project as not only a citizen, a town meeting member, a taxpayer, a contractor, a designer, and a project manager, and a real estate professional. Tearing this building down is a great loss to this town because the town has 2 very strong needs and very prominent needs, and that is housing, which after meeting with the director of housing for New Bedford, this region has a need of 3,000 more rental units. And this town has a need of income because it was published in a report given to all town meeting members that the income for this town we need to start exploring different ways to bring up that income because it's not balancing out properly across the board. So I think that to just tear this building down is jumping at this issue way too fast. And I, for one, can speak in regards to housing and affordable housing, which there's not much of in this town. My grandmother's been on a waiting list with Solimar for 6 years at this point to try to get her closer to us so that she can downsize from her house. And unfortunately, we didn't get to that point with her because she's still on a waiting list and had a stroke that we couldn't get to her in time for because she was too far away from us. This town has a pressing need for affordable housing for seniors. And so to tear down something that's worth $2 million when probably costs an extra $5 million just to build that shell again today and is structurally sound. I mean, that building is sound. Tear out the walls on the inside, gut all the plumbing. That's the way that building is built is one of the most solid ways that you can construct a building or facility in modern day history. So I just think it would be a shame to see it just torn down. So that's how I feel. Thank you.
Sue Caducci, Historical Commission. You asked about the condition of the building and can it be remediated from Legionnaires and whatever else you think is happening in there. If you read the attachments that were provided to you, then you would understand that that technology exists to address the Legionnaires. And on top of that, if it is to be gutted in order to be repurposed, that would take care of the problem completely anyway. And if you read Ron's report, he clearly stated that when we went in, he looked at anything that was exposed that was wood. We never saw any signs of mold. We saw there were some indications that there had been intrusion of water, but that there was no active mold going on at the time. There were books left in the police station to which he went and checked the paper because that's always a great indicator of a humid or damp climate. And the paper was dry as could be. And when we went in there, it was 3 consecutive days of heavy rain, much of what we're experiencing today and yesterday. So I don't know what else to tell you or what I can do to convince you. And as far as the delays that we have been up against in trying to move this forward, we haven't. The last committee, the subcommittee to look at the remediation of the station, was granted staff time from the town planner and the building inspector. We don't have that level of support. We're doing this all as volunteers because we truly believe that we owe it to town residents to provide some level of affordable housing, not only for seniors, but there's also a need for affordable housing for young people. There are towns and cities across the country that continue to bemoan the fact that we can't retain our young people so that they can live in the town in which they grew up in. So what I did was I reached out to Michael Watson, who I'm sure you're all familiar with, former select board member, now superintendent at Greater New Bedford Vocational High School, and asked him what are the barriers to recent graduates trying to start their own business, young entrepreneurs. And he promised me he would look into it from his side of the business, because that lower level of that building has the ability to create maybe some incubator space, because you're going to have 10 to 15 apartments, possibly above, that could be potential customers for those businesses. And all those businesses which fit nicely within that model would be childcare, cosmetology, and culinary, all part of the training that they do at the Voc. So could we set up some kind of a program with the Voc to give some of those students a taste at what it's like to run a business? Possibly, I don't know. And now there's been a lot of inroads as far as looking at intergenerational housing. So you have elders living with young people or young families, and they tie the elders in with the child care because they feel that it's good for both the children and for the elders. So to me, this all seems like it's worth the time given to us, if you will, to keep exploring these options and let us get the professionals that we need to really dive deep and look at this situation to see what we can do for the residents of the town of Dartmouth.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Brooks, anything? Mr. Mickelson?
Yes. So on the structural side of the building, we happen to have someone sitting here tonight has a civil structural, he is a civil structure engineer. So he has his license, and he is our town administrator. So I would like to hear again from not only Mr. McGinnis's observation of what that building is as far as structurally or how it stands. I'd like to listen to him with another hat on as a structural and engineer. So Mr. McGinnis, please.
Well, as a structural engineer, I've been in the building, a handful of times. It's in rough shape. I can tell you one thing that I noticed right away was there was an addition that was built off the back, maybe around 2004. I'm not sure when, but it is substandard and it is settling. There's cracks, so it would need to be removed and evaluated. There's been a lot of assessments on the building. In 2017, the town hired an appraiser to do a market assessment of the property to see what its use would be for housing, 10 units. The appraisal assessment went through the structure, did a market analysis with other communities, similar structures that were proposed. At the time in 2017, they established the market value of the property at $385,000, which is not much. And that is assuming that the building was not there because you would need to build something else if they wanted the particular housing that was requested, which was 10 units of 1,300 to 1,500 square feet with a parking garage underneath the building. In addition to that, we talk a lot about cleaning of the building and the state of the building with mold. As part of the demolition process and preparing the bid specs, we needed to do an official asbestos remediation survey. We had a professional come in, they did the survey. They estimate that it's going to be about $110,000 to remediate the asbestos that's currently in the building. So you need to deduct that from anything you want to plan to do with the building. In our assessment, there was just not a dollar value to the building that made it sustainable for the future. I think some of the options that were brought up tonight are great. They're in our master plan. We try to address them. We talk about that internally, ways to do that, but it's also in a cost-effective, economical manner. I think we all know, particularly as it relates to a historic commission, saving buildings sometimes is a lot more costly than building new buildings. So many residents and businesses, when they look at a structure, they have to weigh out the pros and cons of that. I think the town has done that here. When the Police Reuse Committee was together, they were pretty unanimous that the building had no use to the town. So we move forward with that. So we're just trying to look at the situation we have in hand. The town does not have a lot of developable parcels. In fact, there's really 2. This is one of them. So when the town looks at what its options are for the future, it needs to take into account that it has limited developable land. So all that put in place, we look at the facility that's been vacant now for 10 years, and we think any use would be more costly to the town than it is to remove it. And then on top of that, it ties in nicely with the recreation facilities that's in there. If the town were to pursue a recreation center, that would be a location, not exactly where the building is, but somewhere on that property in our analysis and talking with our architect, there was not, they did not believe there was room for both maintaining the existing building and siting a recreation center on the site.
Mr. Mickelson?
Yes. We also had a similar situation with a decaying problem asbestos facility, the Gidley School. Similar issues. It was empty for God knows how long. The police station has been empty, so there's, I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but without any movement of air from either heating or air conditioning, I don't know how we can assess that part of the building. Again, it's decaying in the back, it's rotted in the back, that would all have to be just taken out, and why would we redo it? But it had the asbestos problem to me on a health issue. I wouldn't want to go in that building. I wouldn't let my kids, my grandmother, my aunt, my uncle, I wouldn't let anybody in that building. God forbid somebody got sick and we let them in that building, and I wouldn't want it on my brain at all. I don't feel the building's worth saving. For all of those reasons.
Number one, any asbestos that's in that building is going to have to be addressed no matter if the building is kept or demolished. As a matter of fact, there's more asbestos in that building that's going to need to be dealt with if the building is demolished rather than if it's kept. Because that entire roof and the membrane over a lot of the existing roof most likely has asbestos materials in it. If that building remains how it is, that does not need to be touched. That's number one. Number two, there were no signs from what we saw of rotting in the rear of that building. There are signs that there was water damage once upon a time, as there was footage cut off the sheetrock around the building to allow for it to dry up, as there may have been a leak. But from what we were able to see, it appears that the only leak that may have occurred in that building was from settling, as Sean had said, and maybe a potential foundation crack, which is very common in this area when it comes to building to experience foundation cracking. Now, I understand that there's an idea of building a recreation center in this town. That's awesome. But the reality is, as it is shown in our reports as town meeting members, financially, in this day and age, today as we stand, this town cannot afford to even maintain that building. Now, I would understand if this already went to town meeting, it was already voted on, we were definitely doing a recreation center. Awesome. That's not the case. There's been a hired project manager to look into that project. That's it. So we should not go tearing down a building because there's a future idea for future reuse. This should come across the plate maybe in the future, but this committee is not only trying to preserve a historic building, but they're also trying to think outside of the box of different ideas that fall along with the master plan. I went in that building. The air quality in it is fine. You could not smell mildew, you could not smell hazardous materials as you were walking around. It's just like any other building. And I recently completed feasibility studies for the town of Somerset and some of their town buildings. And if you compare any of the buildings I walked in Somerset compared to that, I probably should have been in full hazmat suits compared to what I went through for the town of Dartmouth. That building, exterior and shell, is solid. I mean, Somerset's buildings, the bricks were falling off of them. There was asbestos falling from the ceiling. They were disasters, and they're rehabbing those buildings. Never mind one in such condition like this. So I just think more time needs to be spent really looking at this.
Anybody else? Mr. Gracie?
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah.
Yes, Mr. Gracie.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say that I have felt along that somewhere along the line we kind of started rushing through this potential project to get to a known end. And I'm not so sure that's the right call. I thought all along there should have been a bit more investigation to really have the professionals look at it. There's been some good points made tonight and other times. that would give it the proper chance for all things to be considered correctly. And I personally would vote for their proposal to spend more time and give it more look, and then you know the answers. Once you absolutely know the answers, then make a proper decision to move forward. I think moving forward at this point would be too soon. So I would support what they want to do. I think it's the right thing to do, and it's a building that's been there certainly beyond my childhood. It would perform a valuable function. Could perform a valuable function for the town.
I think it's I think it's pretty clear that this board is unsure, and that's why we voted last time to give it some more time to look. I, for one, if I could, I'd love to be able to send somebody in there who's a professional, who comes out with an absolute professional, pay them to tell us how and when that building can be cleaned and safe. I think that would make everybody feel better, and then we can consider. I'm not interested in feasibility studies and converting a building and how nice it is and how terrible it is. It doesn't matter to me. To me, I'd like to be able to be proven, if we could, that this building can be clean and safe, and therefore then move on. And if that is a possibility, then I say that's what you do, because I think otherwise it's a complete waste of time. Because this board has already said, tear it down, because. Now, if we have new information, and we shouldn't do it, and we should act more carefully, then that's a different story. And I don't think that message has been conveyed between us. First, the message that we care about trying to save this building, if at all possible, and that you understand it's not about your job of doing feasibility studies out of the purview of a historical commission to say, here's what we ought to do, because, well, that's not your job. It's planning, it's a select board, and it's a different process. And I think if we get on the same page and look at that, I'd be satisfied. Otherwise, I wouldn't change my mind. Mrs. Brooks?
Yes, what I was going to say is that I agree with both Mr. Gracie and yourself, Mr. Tattlebaum, in saying that we do need someone to come in, trusted by all sides, to look through it and tell us whether it can be, if there's any value to saving it and reusing it, but not determine at that point what to reuse it for. I do think we have a separate housing issue, which I do agree with the committee, talking about affordable housing for seniors, for younger people, for all of that. And I think that we need to talk to the Dartmouth Housing Authority and also look at some of the what were once commercial sites, about looking at, can they also be something figured in? That is a separate conversation. But I do think before, I will be voting for an extension tonight because I do want that answer. If it came back and said it's not to be salvageable, then I'll say the right decision was made before. But with potential new information and looking and reading Mr. DePippo's description, I would have thought that this would have been a Superfund site, black mold everywhere. The fact that it hasn't had heating or cooling in all these years. So that's where I will.
Mr. McGinnis, is there any chance we can find out this information within reasonable cost and time?
We can look into that. I'm not clear on the information you're looking for. So
Neither am I. Is it good?
You want to know if the buildings can be cleaned. I mean, someone could come in, but they're cleaned for what capacity and then what use? And then the town would have to identify the use that they want it identified so they can determine if it's clean for that use. So if it's office space like it was, if it's housing, that's another thing. So they're going to want to know what the town wants. Some things to consider that can go in there and say, you can gut it all the way back to the walls.
I think clean is a nebulous term.
Yes,
it's much more intense than that.
And what is the use after that? So you might say, well, we use the existing building as it is for creating housing, but it may not be may or may not be suitable for housing and its capacity that it's in. And people look at schools a lot and say, well, they can turn that into housing. Well, sometimes that can happen, other times it cannot. So, you know, it would be, I don't know what the cost would be, or, you know, we'd have to hire an architect to come in and do an assessment. They'd have to hire an environmentalist to come in to you know, determine whether the air quality, the carpet quality, the materials quality, what kind of state they're in. We already know what the asbestos situation is because that was done professionally. So we'd have to pull together costs for all of that.
I would like to challenge the asbestos, because in looking at this, if it's in the floor tiles, then it's contained asbestos, which is still, it can be, as long as it's not damaged, it can stay the way it is, or it could be removed. But I'm looking at the wallboard, which could be gypsum, which is a different issue, but I'm not seeing pipes wrapped in asbestos. Look exposed.
They're not decaying.
Then most of the pipes I'm seeing are just exposed pipes. So
Well, they're not in that picture. So, you know, we have an assessment that was done by an asbestos remediation professional. So they've gone through the building and given us that assessment. One thing to consider, even with any abatement, if, you know, sometimes in older buildings that are having current use, you can leave the asbestos in place and go over it. If you're renovating the building, generally it needs to be remediated.
Yeah, so Sean, how long might that take?
I'm sorry.
How long would that take to get professionals in there to give them their?
I don't know. We'd have to pull together. I can't even give you an estimate.
It won't be inexpensive.
And it'll be very costly.
Yeah, I can't. Probably.
$50,000.
No, more than that.
At least.
$75,000.
I don't know after that.
He'll do it for 10.
Yeah, well, we have procurement guidelines we have to follow.
That's the way that building was built in the first place. We're not going to do that again.
Would it be possible to?
Ma'am, can you come up, please? Can you come up and speak at the,
You can't escape the mic.
maybe looking in the back? there?
Would it be possible to go back to the original Lieb and Associates and ask them to do an update?
No.
That was a long time ago, and that presentation went sour quickly.
Went nowhere.
In my opinion, not at all.
Okay.
That's exactly what I wouldn't want to do, but Mr. McDonald.
Yeah. One of the things with your group was similar to our group. In essence, even though we're elected, we're still volunteers. So, you know, we don't get paid for this. So we have to kind of make the best decision based upon the best information possible. The information that we currently have on that building is roughly 6 years old, and that's the appraisal. Has technology changed in 6 years? Yes. Has the condition of the building changed in 6 years? Somewhat. I'm not going to say no, but because it's virtually impossible for a building that's been sitting vacant for 6 years not to change in some form. So I stated earlier that, you know, government moves slowly. Sometimes moving slowly is really not good. Sometimes it's a benefit. So the question is, and one of the things that really kind of, it just sticks out at me is you have an appraisal saying that the building is worth $385,000, but yet your report comes up that the building's worth somewhere between $1 to $2 million. Okay? So, you know, is that $1 to $2 million building costs if it was to be replicated? Or is it the actual value of the building right now? Okay, so you would almost need an updated appraisal as to what the building is to whether or not it comes, because we can only go by with what we have for the appraisal, you know, the current one that we have, which is 6 years old. And we know that the market has dramatically changed in 6 years. So, you know, I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit in between here. You know, I don't want to be the guy to say, you know, just knock it down when there's potential to do something with it. But then again, I don't also want to be the guy to go into the building and all of a sudden, you know, it just becomes a money pit to fix or remediate or do whatever you need to do. Because in essence, every single piece of plumbing in that building has to be removed, because that's where the situation that we got into, why we had to get our guys out. So in order to remove the pipes, all the walls have to come down. And then at that point in time, it has to be building code today, not building code back then. So I don't want to throw money after bad, but I also don't want to throw the baby with the bathwater. So this is, heck, you know, the building's been sitting vacancy for for over 6 years. 9 years. That's why I said over 6, because I couldn't really recall. Thank you, Sue. So, you know, we're talking, and I'll be honest with you, the building was the building envelope is in much better shape than the Gidley School ever was. God, I would get in trouble for saying this.
Okay, we're going to try.
Well, no, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this because I'm going to say this. I mean, as far as taking care of the buildings, way back when, okay, the town did a better job than the school department. Okay, the school department does a great job now. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They do a great job now. Back then, they didn't. Okay, but I've. If you need more time, and if we need more information, I'd like to have more information. You know, I'd really like to have more information, because if the building is viable for something, whatever it is, you know, and even if it is housing, you still need a program to go with that housing, okay? And that's the key. There aren't that many programs, because this now is my wheelhouse. Is affordable housing. That's my wheelhouse. There isn't that many programs out there anymore. The government is not in a position anymore to have subsidized housing out there. There aren't that many. Once in a while there is. The state is available, but you know, you need a plethora of partners to come up with some kind of affordable housing where there's subsidy involved.
We got two comments over here. Go ahead, Sue.
You need a developer that is familiar with that type of project, so that they can hear me from here. The development company that's doing the project at Holy Name High School in New Bedford, similar size, similar number of apartments. I've been trying to reach them. Their architect is out of Fall River. So he might be the one to approach to see if he can give us some technical support. I don't know. But I won't know unless I can try. Mm-hmm. And if you at least approve the 10,000 from the CPC, if we can utilize that little pocket of money to get the answers that we need.
I'm going to interrupt you, Sue, because I think that's the wrong approach. If this board decides that we're going to do everything we can to find out if that building can be remediated, then we need to take back control. We need to get an assessment and find someone to do it and see what it costs and vote and approve it. If we don't do anything but that, we're going to be crawling along doing nothing. And that's, to me, it's either a go or no go regarding how this board feels about this issue. And frankly, I don't care about, I know the developer from the Holy Name. None of that matters to me right now. If we keep thinking that way, all we're going to do is tread water. The question is the building savable? Period.
So
what are we going to do to try to find out? I'd
like to make a motion.
Hey, one more comment, and then we're done.
Jamie O'Day. I'm a Historical Commission member. It seems like we're making some inroads. I mean, Ms. Brooks seems to be coming to our side in terms of, as we've explained it, Mr. Gracie as well, and Mr. McDonald, you seem to be on the fence somewhat. And as Mr. McGinnis explains from his wearing his structural engineering cap, am I correct in understanding you're saying that a feasibility study could be conducted to understand better the possibilities?
You can always conduct a study on,
Well,
anything.
did you
yes.
say that this could be done?
I mean, there was assessments done.
I know, but
back-
are you saying this could be done?
Yes, if the
Okay,
board wants that to
so
be done,
you're
they can
saying
vote
this
to have
could
it
be done. Our chair's ask is an amount of money with CPC funding to do exactly that, is it not? And is there a dollar number fixed up to $10,000? So is our ask all that impossible to fulfill? In other words, we want $10,000 to further feasibility studies to see if something could be done to it rather than simply tearing it down. It seems like an easy ask for your body to say yes to that, to approve our $10,000 ask. We go back to the CPC and we're granted those funds, and we go forward. That way, we've turned over all the stones. We've looked under them to see what the possibilities are. We haven't made a rash decision, and if it turns out that the studies prove that it's not feasible, well, then it's simply not feasible, and we go on. And we run out the clock until January of next year when the demolition stay expires. It doesn't seem to be that difficult of a decision. And I do also want to remind all of us in this room, and your board, is, with the exception of our town administrator, we are, somebody mentioned it, we are all volunteers. We give a great deal of our time and talent to these causes. We're volunteers. We're happy to do it. It's our part of our community service to Dartmouth because it's a town we love and care for. I mean, that needs to be addressed, and we don't need to be adversaries or take on adversarial roles. I noticed a sense of tension and a touch of hostility from some comments made from the board, and I don't think that's entirely appropriate. We're all after the same goals, and that's to make the town better and to look for affordable mixed-use housing, if that's the case. And we're certainly here. Can you imagine the billable hours we all consume if we were to do that tally? I mean, we, unlike the town council, we don't charge $275 an hour. So you get a great deal of expertise and service from us for free. And again, our hearts are in it, our hearts are in the right place, and we're not impractical people. We're trained. 3 of us have professional planning degrees. So we do have a level of expertise. We're not new at this game. This is not our first rodeo. So from that point of view, I think our opinion should be valued, and I would encourage the board to see if you can move in a direction that will at least allow our chair's ask to be fulfilled. Thank you.
I do have one question, though, on the CPC funding. Does that have to go before town meeting for approval?
Yes.
Does, yeah. Yes.
Okay, we're saying yes, you're saying no.
From Chair Buddy Baker-Smith, he indicated that this would come out of the general fund and would not be something that would be a warrant article.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Oh, Frank can't hear.
No, you couldn't. No, Peter says he couldn't hear you.
Microphone.
It was, Buddy Baker-Smith told me that it would be coming out of the general fund. It would be under $10,000 and would not count because it's not coming out from one of the designated areas of housing or historical, et cetera, that it would not have to go through that process.
Yeah, can we find out if that's?
We can find out. I mean, if the board wanted to move forward with that, I would ask if we do any sort of feasibility study, generally we get estimates about what that cost is going to be, then we issue a request for proposals. And I'm not sure that's been done. I'm not sure what the proposal was that was put together to get the estimate of $10,000. So generally, we have state procurement guidelines, and we have processes in place to get an assessment and a proposal of what the costs are going to be, and then the costs are presented and voted on. So I'm not sure what's been done. The CPC is a little less, stringent on those requirements, but we would need to first pull the costs together. If you wanted to approve their $10,000, we don't know what that includes. So your recommendation?
Again, is whether it costs us $2,000 or $50,000 to do this. I believe this is an exercise done by the proper procurement process.
Wouldn't my suggestion to have the town administrator hire someone, wouldn't that be a quicker decision rather than waiting for another process and basically duplicating what we're trying to do?
You still have to follow the,
Well, they will too, but we can get it done a lot quicker.
No. If this is going to be done, it's got to be done jointly. We're not going to do one, they're not going to do one, and then all of a sudden, we're going to have to, no, this should be done jointly, okay?
Well, I'm asking you to
So,
support.
but they still have to go through we still have to go through the procurement procedures.
Right, exactly.
So, and that's the thing, and I'm.
So
I'm
why
also,
don't we do
you
it
know,
together and just get it done?
I don't think there's any question. We should be done, it should be done together.
Well, I was going to ask.
So you have to come up here.
How many of you have actually been in that building within the last year?
The last year, no.
I wouldn't go in that building
I wouldn't go in that building right now.
if you paid me.
You might be surprised, just saying.
I was in the building 3 years ago, I was in the building 5 years ago.
Okay, we're not talking about the building anymore.
Mr. Chairman.
Getting off your hand here.
Yes, sir.
Frank.
Frank?
Yes, if I could just finish up with a statement. There's an awful lot of questions that are still bouncing around, and we're not getting there. They're all good questions, and they're things that should be asked. While going through this, and I listened to a couple of our members, one of the things they mentioned is things that I was thinking about, and they were thinking about Gidley School. I went in Gidley School before it was torn down, and not before it was torn down, it was, but it was historically it was kind of interesting because there wasn't even any heat in the building. It had those wooden chutes would send the heat up to the top floor from the boiler to help do it. I thought that was interesting, but that's old clearly. But to look at the Gidley School today, people say, we tore the building down to do this. People would probably scratch their heads and say, what the hell for? It's a beautiful building. There's these questions that people are all asking can be answered. I mean, it's not, I'm an engineer too. I mean, it's not it's they're guessing where we don't have to guess. What we have to do is spend some money, and we can have it looked at properly and have the right answers available, and then we can sit down and all agree. Yeah, it's worth the money to go further, or it's not worth the money. Mr. Talabot made some good points. That was your opportunity to do it. If that building gets torn down, it's gone forever. No questions will ever be answered. We can answer it and move on, which is what I suggest.
Can we get something within the next couple weeks?
I mean, we'll try. Probably not, I'll be honest, if we're getting responses from architects.
At least an update.
Yeah, we can give an update.
What are we looking for to get? Is there an appetite on this board to conduct a study to determine whether this building can be cleaned and lived in by residents and done by the town procurement process? Is there an appetite for it?
If you feel that we have to be that specific, I hate saying a feasibility study because I feel that's too.
This is not a feasibility study as far as I'm concerned.
This is hiring a company to.
It's a company
Just to tell us.
Exactly.
Can we find that kind of company?
Basically, it will come down to this. We need to hire somebody to tell us is the building worth saving, period.
I agree.
That's what it comes down to.
Well, you would need a purpose. They're going to say, well, saving for what purpose?
For residential.
Office, residential.
Office, residential.
One item to consider too that was part of the appraisal that was done back in 2017 is the site is not zoned for any type of residential use. So it would be up to town meeting to rezone.
Well,
I'm just saying, that's just an added variable.
Town meeting wants to save the building, town meeting can rezone the area.
Yeah.
Well,
And if they don't, well, then,
let's look at worst-case scenario. It cost us $40,000 to find out that the building is not savable. We've also lost the bid on the demolition is going to cost us 10% more. And we go ahead and do it, and everybody says, guys, nice try, and it's done. That's probably the worst thing that can happen to us. Maybe 75,000, maybe 20,000, whatever it is. Best case is we get some really good news. And then the process then starts about approvals for zoning, about what are you going to do with it and how we're going to do it. And it's not the purview of the Historical Commission to say, okay, the feasibility, it's a town project with all of us involved to say, okay, now we got ourselves a building that can be saved. But until then, as far as I'm concerned, all conversations about what to do with that building are out until we find out if it can be properly.
As well as perpetuating this whole business about it's a sick building, it's this, it's got that.
Yep.
That's got to stop as well, I think.
Well, to be honest with you, Sue, the reason why the police station was built was because the building was a sick building. Okay, and that's the last known fact. Whether it is still a sick building, that's what we want to find out. But that's the reason why the building was not rehabbed way back when, and a new station was built. So that's the last known fact, and you have to go by that. It's just like if you have a car. You buy a car, it's green, okay? And now all of a sudden it's red. Well, you're still going to know it was a green car, even though it might be painted red. Okay? So, I mean, it's just a known fact. It's not we're just trying to say, oh, it's still a sick building. No, we don't know if it's still a sick building. We know that it was a sick building, and now we're looking to find out if it is still a sick building.
Not that it's still sick, it's that what can be done, what do we do to address it so that we can refer
We
Right,
have to
that's what
first
we wanna find
determine-
out.
I need a motion.
First to determine if the building can be is safe.
All right,
That's
I'm going to make a motion that we authorize Mr. McGinnis to put together a package for our
Approval.
for our review, to have a study to find out whether or not that this building, that the former town hall, old town hall, previous town hall, police station / whatever you want to call it, is still, can we make it
safe.
For residential purpose.
For residential or
Mixed
office,
Yeah,
office
mixed.
use or mixed use?
Yep.
Well, it depends upon, you can't say mixed use because then it could be anything.
Residential
Yeah,
is the
residential
extreme
or
case.
office use. Residential or office use, please.
I'll second that motion.
So mixed use could be a whole lot of things. I just read, I just,
Well, the more the merrier.
keep it focused. Let's keep it focused. So,
We have a second on the motion.
I did.
Gracie.
I
I
second
got it, I got it. Any discussion on that motion? Anybody? Let's vote. Mr. Mickelson? Mr. McDonald?
yes.
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Gracie?
Absolutely, yes.
Chair votes yes, 5-0. And we'll wait to hear from Mr. McGinnis as soon as possible.
And you're going to keep us in the loop, yes?
No.
He's being fresh.
Keep going the loop.
I'm going to suggest that your chair be in contact with Mr. McGinnis.
Absolutely.
Okay?
You'll be the first to know.
You should also know that it wasn't that long ago that that building was being used by the state police.
It was also being used by the cops
Okay.
for whatever training
So-
purpose it was
So
at
we
the
got
time,
what you
right?
wanted. Let's leave it as it is. Thank you. We appreciate all you do and all the work you put in, okay? We're not adversaries here. Okay. Next, Dartmouth Cultural Council appointment.
Oh, it just got very lonely in here.
Yes, in your packet, you can see that the Dartmouth Cultural Council has sent a note to the Select Board that they had voted to recommend the Select Board appoint Sophie Marshall to the Dartmouth Cultural Council.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Let's vote. Mr. Mickelson?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Gracie?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, 5-0, unanimous. Thank you. Next, interim building commissioner appointment. Mr. McGinnis.
Yes, thank you. So with the current building commissioner position vacant, as we advertise the position, the town needs to appoint a building commissioner. We are required by state law to have one appointed. So we are recommending that the board appoint the current assistant building commissioner, Ed Bailey, to the role of interim building commissioner to fulfill the needs required by the state.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the appointment, interim appointment?
No.
Let's vote. Mr. Mickelson?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald? Yes. Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Gracie?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, 5-0, unanimous. Thank you very much. Interim building commissioner, MOA.
Yes, so after the appointment of Mr. Bailey to the interim building commissioner, we need a memorandum of agreement with Mr. Bailey as fulfilling that role. And in your packet is that memorandum of agreement for the board to vote to have me, if they vote to approve it, to have me sign it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? Let's vote. Mr. Mickelson?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Brooks? Yes. Mr. Gracie?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, 5-0, unanimous. Thank you. Next is going to be 718 Reed Road.
No.
No, we
No.
Nope.
building commissioner
Right here.
interview, appointments, committee.
Building commissioner interview committee appointments. My apologies.
Yes, so we are looking to fill the current building commissioner position as soon as possible. In past searches, we've had 2 members of the select board sit in on the interview committee. And I would like to see if the board wants to appoint 2 members to be involved in the interview committee, and we'll start the interview process as soon as possible as the applicants are submitted. And
I would be more than
internally.
happy to.
Mr. McDonald has volunteered. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr.
I'll do it.
Mickelson?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Are you seconding to join the committee,
Yep,
or,
no,
oh, okay, I wasn't sure if you were seconding,
No,
Sean's.
I'll be the
myself.
second member.
Okay.
So spit it out, Mr. Mickelson. Are you volunteering as a second position?
I am volunteering for the second commission
Thank you. Okay. So we need to vote separately?
committee.
You can vote them both
God,
together.
Together.
How, nobody stays on contact here.
Someone needs to make a
Oh,
motion
we need
to
a
appoint
motion.
both, to appoint both of them.
All right, so I'll make a
Go
motion
ahead.
to appoint both Mr. McDonald and Mr. Mickelson to the Building Commissioner Interview Committee.
Mr. Gracie? Could you second that, Mr. Gracie?
Yes.
Second, thank you. Okay. Any discussion? You 2 guys going to serve well together?
Maybe,
Any problems?
maybe.
Not sure.
We'll flip a coin.
There's an interim, we're going to wait and see. Okay, let's vote. Mr. Mickelson?
Yes.
Mrs. Brooks? Yes. Mr. Gracie?
Yes.
And the chair is unsure, but we'll vote yes this time.
As he brings Knishes, we'll
Right, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for volunteering, fellas.
Raise?
What's that?
Raise?
You do.
Okay.
We'll share it with all of us.
Okay.
Town Administrator update. Mr. McInnes.
Yes, well,
Wait.
one of my items is in my update too, so we'll go over that. 70, I'll start with that. So the board may have noticed a longstanding problem property in the town has begun to be cleaned up. That's 718 Reed Road. This was a property that had fallen into disrepair for a number of reasons over a number of years, and there's quite a bit of debris and trash that need to be removed. The Conservation Commission had approved our approval to start the remediation of the site on the 17th of October, and on the 23rd of October, cleanup began. So they're in the process of cleaning up. If anyone that goes by there regularly would notice a big difference.
Huge difference.
If you don't go by there regularly, you may not notice a big difference, but there's quite a bit of cleaning that needs to be
and
done.
there's still a lot to do.
Yeah, so we,
Yeah, they've also made their mark on Reed Road because it's just a giant white blotch in the middle of Reed Road.
yeah, so there's a lot of cleaning that needs to be done, but they are moving forward, so it's a lot of progress for, like I
Money
said,
well spent.
a problem
My
property.
understanding.
And they haven't had any problems? I mean, we were anxious about the,
So far, so good.
Rodents?
the
two
folks, the owners and
Yeah,
inhabitants
no,
and.
they're,
The owner is dead, and his live-in partner or his roommate does not have access to the building anymore.
Oh, okay.
It's been that way since May. There hasn't been any food sources available since May, so there's a possibility that the rodent population is not as prevalent as it was. I haven't heard from any of the neighbors of any type of rodent problem. There has been a couple of sightings here and there, but that would be normal anyway.
Yeah.
They're coming out of your yard.
And, no, actually, no,
That's great,
I have a bear in my backyard.
keep it-
Most of the exterior has been cleaned up. I believe they're scheduled to do the interior. But now I want to throw a wrench in this. Okay? At the end of this, I'm not sure what the procedure is, but I want this parcel of land for the town. I want the town to get this parcel of land so that we can have access to the lake and some type of a park or anything, or, so that there's access. I'm not asking for a boat launching area. I'm not asking for anything like that. All I'm looking for is passive viewing on this part. I want this piece of land for the town.
Well, we got to get the town attorneys involved.
I understand that, and I know it's gonna end up being through eminent
Because
domain or something like that.
maybe that's
but
the only way.
I want this piece of land for the town.
Is the bank involved still in this property, Sean?
It's in receivership, so there's a receiver that's been administering
So
everything.
you have to get through that also.
And
So
there's-
But I
there's a lot
think
of
once it's
paperwork.
cleaned up, we're going
there's a lot
to
of
see
rigmarole.
just how big that
Oh,
parcel
God, yeah.
truly is.
Beautiful. You could have picnic tables there, it'd be nice, be great.
Well, I'm not gonna go so far as saying that,
I'm gonna
because
put
then
hot
that's
dog- my
that's a
hot dog
cleanup
cart
thing.
there.
That's a cleanup thing, and I don't wanna do that. What I don't envision is I don't envision people parking on Reed Road to go park and just sit and use that, like it used to be a musical beach back in the 50s and 40s and whatnot.
remember that.
All I'm looking for is something similar to what's happening over on Route 6, where the Pascamassa River is. That's what I'm looking for, a passive recreational spot to sit and watch water. Pretty much it.
Okay.
It's a key parcel. It would just be so much better than what's there now.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody in that neighborhood would have a problem with that.
Okay.
Well, we'll find out.
So I'm floating that idea right now.
Okay. But so far, the cleanup's good.
Well, let's just see what legally, what we got involved.
Okay. Some other items. We've been working on the FY25 preliminary budget. Gary Carrero, the finance director, and myself have met with Mr. Kiley and Ms. Saber McGuire at the school to talk about their budget requirements for FY25 to see if we can assess that. They've come up with a number which you saw, and we wanted to talk about that in some detail. But, in our practice, we also want to, have a long-term approach, so we're trying to look at FY26 as well to see what the impacts will be over the next 2 years. So we're working on that, and we'll have something to present in the near future.
With that, I'm sorry, Mr. McGinnis, can we also start, as part of the process for that, can we also start looking at how we used to fund the road improvements in town? Because I know this year it took a dip, a significant dip over previous years. I want to go back to where we were putting in $3-4 million towards road improvements, using other, Chapter 90 funds or whatever the hell it is.
We can look into that, but I'll tell
I
you,
know.
the school's budget is not going to leave any room.
Oh, you know something? They need the roads to get to school.
I'm just,
Okay, I'm just saying, they need the roads to get to school. And if the roads are unpassable, nobody gets to school. So,
Along that same line, Mr. McDonald, when we were at the town meeting and there were people asking about the roads, I think I'd like Mr. Barber to come again and tell us just how expensive it is to do a mile of road or 3 miles of
easy enough,
road.
you can send that in a letter.
He can send that, because I think
very
we
much
need
so.
to state that, because I think people think it's a lot cheaper.
And multiply that by 290
Yes,
miles.
yes.
Well, actually now, probably 212 because we added 3 subdivisions.
Yes. So I do think we need that information from Mr. Barber, and I think we need to reference it frequently so that people understand just how expensive when they complain about a road and we get to it, and then they complain how it's been done when it doesn't have its final code on it.
Mm-hmm.
Just how expensive it really is. Thank you.
Sorry, making some notes here.
That's all right, no.
Go ahead.
Please, and we're sorry we're butting into your presentation.
Not really. Well, let's see here.
Really?
So that's the budget stuff. The state migrant sheltering emergency management plan, we've been working with an internal team that is not only internal, but it's moved beyond that. Some of the members here are involved in that. We're meeting regularly. We have another meeting tomorrow to address the needs of the sheltered families, the impacts on the community, how people can volunteer. We're trying to kind of organize some volunteer and communication efforts. So we have a big meeting planned for tomorrow to discuss that. As of Friday, we have 44 families in town. So
Just went up, huh?
it went up, yes.
Yeah.
So, in line with that, as the board knows, last year we established a Dartmouth Community Services Outreach Team, which is an internal team of multiple departments. They're still out there providing services to the community. To date, since February, they provided services to 65 unhoused individuals, which is quite a few. Unfortunately, it's quite a few here in Dartmouth, but they were serviced by the team, which is great. They've updated their street sheet information flyer. It's got a lot of great information on there for people in need of services. And my goal is to have them in later in November to give an update to the board on their progress. They've really done a great job. Lastly, the town will be receiving $345,307 for our COVID-19 related expenditures from the government. So even though that was a few years ago, it takes time to get reimbursed. Unfortunately, all but $21,881 will go to special revenue fund to offset the costs that the town had incurred. And a huge thanks to Shannon Leonaise at the police department. She did a lot of work for the town and kind of organizing the information and putting it together along with Donna Fernandez and Chris Michaud in our health department to kind of pull that together. So thanks to them. And that's all I have.
Comments?
No.
All finished? Okay.
I'm done. Yeah.
Select board comments. Mr. Mickelson, anything to say?
Yeah, I'm going to ask, I talked to Mr. Kiley Friday regarding the migrants and the responsibilities that the school has been basically thrown in their lap. You've got 30 plus students that need to be taught English. They have two teachers that qualify to teach, I guess it's an accelerated English learning program. And I'd like you to expound on that better because of your past performances as a pretty damn good teacher.
Well, I will tell you that, yes, they are looking at, prior to this, the town supported 2 EL teachers. And so English immersion is getting students into classrooms to hear the English language. And the EL teachers help to bridge the gap between that understanding.
Every day.
It's a lot of time needed, and the number of families that have moved in and will require that are beyond what the current 2 teachers can do. So they are looking at increasing increasing by 1 teacher.
Mm-hmm.
They've also bought a number of devices that are sort of pocket translators, so the students would be able to have those and carry them, so that the teacher they're assigned to and their classmates can speak into it, and it will respond in. And currently, there's many languages. And now that you've given me the floor, Mr. Mickelson, I have a letter that Dr. Saba McGuire has written and has gone out to the Dartmouth public school community that I thought I'd read to us tonight, because we're trying to put a spin on it, not just that these are migrant families, some are. Some are families that are in need of sheltering from next door communities. So there are plenty of American citizens that are in need that are here, as well as others. And so Dr. McGuire says to the Dartmouth Public School community, I hope you've all enjoyed a positive start to your 2023-2024 school year. As you may be aware, the Dartmouth community has received many newcomer families in the past few weeks. As a result, we want to share with you that the schools have welcomed many students joining our school community. In the Dartmouth Public Schools, we hold inclusivity and diversity in high regard. The placement of families within the district allows us to reaffirm our commitment to these values and extend a warm welcome to our new members. We firmly believe that diversity is a source of strength, and together we will create a nurturing environment where everyone feels valued, respected, and supported. Our new families and their children will likely face distinct challenges adapting to a new community and educational system. Here are some ways in which each of us can contribute to making their transition as smooth and positive as possible. Warm welcome. Extend a warm and friendly welcome to our new students and their families. A smile and kind gesture can go a long way in helping them feel at ease in our community. Cultural appreciation. Take the time to learn about and appreciate the diverse cultures represented in our schools. Understanding different backgrounds is a fundamental step toward building empathy and respect. Language support. Many new students may be learning English as a second language. Please be patient and offer your assistance and make them aware of the support resources available at our schools. Inclusive friendships. Encourage our existing students to reach out and befriend their new classmates. True friendships can be a source of support and comfort for students adjusting to a new environment. Supportive network. If you are in a position to do so, please offer your assistance to newcomer families in navigating our school system and accessing local resources. Be assured we are working closely with the state and local officials to best meet the needs of our new students, while at the same time ensuring that we advocate for the financial and human capital resources required to continue to support all students attending Dartmouth schools. Thank you for your continued support and cooperation. There are caring, compassionate staff in the Dartmouth schools. I have witnessed firsthand the welcoming environment they have created in their schools and classrooms. Together, we can ensure that the Dartmouth Public Schools remain a place where every student can thrive, flourish in the inclusivity of their background. I applaud the positive tone that Dr. Saba McGuire has not only shared in this letter, but has shared with the district leadership team, and in turn has asked us to promote that with our own staffs. As you may be aware, I'm back working in the school department. That being said, we're also very aware of the social media of parents expressing concerns about the number of new families coming into town. First of all, that is not a concern of ours. Once they have been placed in Dartmouth, we want to make sure that Dartmouth is a welcoming community to them and we can support their needs. Some of these folks coming have horrible, traumatic backgrounds, and the fact that they have chosen to come to America, that they have chosen to come to Massachusetts, that they have chosen to come to Dartmouth, and in most instances, they have not chosen any of that at all. This is where they have been delivered. It is our task of a community to be just that welcoming. We do not have a timeline on when that they may be rehoused elsewhere. In the past, when we've had situations like this, we've been given a timeline that this is for a few months or this is for a few weeks. This appears to be longer than that. And so they're in situations in what we thought was going to be one motel, and now they're in multiple. That's causing Mr. Kiley, as the school business administrator and in charge of transportation, to create bus transportation plans for these students to go to the school that's in the attendance zone of those motels, but also looking at the across the district enrollments, especially at the elementary level, and see not only which is the attendance zone, but which makes most sense for the students to go to. So this is an ongoing. They've actually put personnel to go up daily to the hotels and register the families, often which are coming with no paperwork. The National Guard members who are on site, who are being used for translation services, have been fabulous and very compassionate. The state supplies not only the housing, but helps to coordinate meals, because they are not in any motels that have access to kitchenettes. So they must be provided with meals. Some hotels have a continental breakfast, some do not. So all of this takes a lot. It's not just the school department is taking care of the school aged families and our students. Immediately, some of the students who were registered, not only was there going to be a language barrier, but they may have arrived with just the clothes on their back. So we worked hard to get them changes of clothes as well. And as Mr. McGinnis had mentioned, there'll be another Zoom conference tomorrow with the outreach team, which has been so important in this work, as well as the school department and members of the town hall, to just make sure that our new families to Dartmouth are supported the best that we can. Thank you.
Anything else?
Not on that matter.
Not on that.
Not on that, but I did want to mention that anyone who likes fall sports, Dartmouth teams are going into tournament seasons, and your best bet is to go on the school department website or the MIAA website and look at those tournament brackets, because girls soccer, boys soccer, field hockey, football are all going into tournament, and we wish them the best of luck.
Have fun.
Have fun.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
You're welcome.
Mr. Gracie, any comments?
No, I'm good.
McDonald?
Hey, the only thing I have, Mr. Chairman, is I make a motion to adjourn and have a happy Halloween.
I have a comment.
That gives me the creeps.
Oh, you
Just
just
hearing it.
ruined it.
Sorry, I'll let you
You
do
ruined
it
it.
again.
Okay, all right.
I have a quick comment. Our long-range planning committee met again, and in light of even the conversation tonight regarding our roads, what kind of roads do we want? What kind of schools do we want? How do we want to pay our employees? How do we want to insure our employees? How do we want to do a water and sewer treatment plant? This committee will come with a recommendation to include all those. What kind of town do we want to live in, and how we're going to pay for it, and how we're going to plan for it. And I think that the discussions tonight all focus and filter the same direction. We need to do long-range planning that's meaningful, and that's what we're going to do, and we're going to deliver. And with that, I end my comment. Sorry for interrupting.
Motion to adjourn.
Happy
Second.
Halloween. Get your motion to adjourn, just so you can stop playing that music.
Are we listening? Let's vote, Mr. Nicholson. We're voting to adjourn.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Thank you.
I'm having so
Mr.
much fun
McDonald.
listening to this music. I
Mr.
love it.
McDonald?
Yes, thank God.
Mrs. Brooks?
Absolutely.
Mr. Gracie?
Yes.
And the chair's begging that we adjourn this meeting, so thank you for the musical.
Well, it's not quite 9 o'clock.
This
so-
meeting is
Gosh.
adjourned.